Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. Welcome back. Today I'm going to attempt to make Kentucky Fried Chicken with what might be the actual 11 herbs and spices recipe. Like the real deal, like the top secret one that nobody knows. Yes, this recipe might be the one. Now there's a little backstory to this. The recipe I'm going to be using actually came from the Chicago Tribune, and a reporter went to meet Joe Ledington, which is the nephew of Colonel Sanders, like the Colonel Sanders. Yes, so the nephew. And apparently in a scrapbook of his Aunt Claudia's, which was the second wife of Colonel Sanders, in there was written a list of 11 herbs and spices and amounts. Jackpot, ding, 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 ding. So as a good reporter should, the recipe amounts and ingredients were published and also tested. So I'm going to be following the Chicago Tribune's recipe. They also have a little video. I'll put all the links down below in the description on how to make this chicken. So it's the new year and a lot of people are making resolutions that involve healthy eating, making good choices. So I thought this might be a good opportunity to test out an air fryer. So not only am I going to be testing the KFC secret recipe, but I'm also going to be comparing an air fryer versus deep frying. So honestly, I don't see how an air fried chicken will taste as good as a deep fried chicken. But we can do a comparison and say it's pretty good or not so good. But it will never ever be the deep fried KFC because it's a completely different method. It doesn't use the right amount of oil, but maybe it comes close. I've never cooked with an air fryer before, so let's find out. Let me catch you up with what I've done already. So what I've gotten here are 6 chicken drumsticks that have been marinating in 1 cup of buttermilk and 1 egg. And that was beaten together, and I placed my chicken in there, and it says to let this rest for 20 to 30 minutes. So what we're doing here is tenderizing the chicken. The buttermilk contains a little bit of acid, and that breaks down the meat a little bit to make it more juicy and succulent. This will also create the batter for our chicken. After we've given it a good soaking, we're going to dredge it in flour, and in combination with that flour, that's going to make our crust. Now in this bowl, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. So 2/3 of a tablespoon of salt, 1/2 a tablespoon of thyme, 1/2 a tablespoon of basil, 1/3 of a tablespoon of oregano, 1 tablespoon celery salt, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon dried mustard, 4 tablespoons of paprika, 2 tablespoons of garlic salt. Oh my gosh. 1 tablespoon of dried ginger. Here's another one I never would have guessed. 3 tablespoons of white pepper. This is a Thai version. Isn't this can awesome? I love this. 3 tablespoons. Oh my goodness. That's 1, 2, 3. Whew, don't breathe this stuff in. As my brother can attest, it will make you sneeze. Now, that's 11 herbs and spices right there. But the Chicago Tribune said that it didn't taste quite right until they added 1 special ingredient. And it is this. And this is MSG, monosodium glutamate. It's used in a lot of cookery. It's delicious. It has this really great, what often people say, umami flavor, which is just this delicious flavor of kind of sweet and salty. I would say more salty. So I feel that MSG has gotten a bit of a bad rap. It's often associated with bad Chinese takeout food, but in fact, it is found everywhere. If you look in the ingredients list of most packaged chips and crackers, seasoned snacks, you will see monosodium glutamate, MSG, listed. Sometimes it's disguised as natural yeast extract. It makes things taste delicious because glutamates, which are naturally found in things like mushrooms, in cheeses, in soy sauce, that mysterious, lovely, salty flavor is delicious in our taste buds, in our minds. So scientists were able to extract that, refine it, and then we can sprinkle it like we do salt. So just like the food industry does, I'm gonna add a little bit of that. I'm gonna add 1/2 a teaspoon. Now I'm gonna carefully stir this up. There is a lot of seasoning in this. So now what we're gonna do is take our chicken pieces, dredge it into the seasoned flour. Get it really coated. Now we're gonna place this on a rack and we're gonna let that rest for 20 minutes. Do that for all of these pieces. Let's talk a little bit about air fryers. So from my understanding, air fryers have become popular in the last few years, but I do remember a model way back. I believe it was called the New Wave. It had a glass kind of hood around it, and you could cook an entire chicken inside it. And basically what an air fryer does is it uses air to fry the food. The air is heated to a very hot temperature. There is a fan similar to a convection oven that circulates the air around the food and then allows the heat to kind of crisp up the food without using a ton of fat. I'm curious to see how well it's going to do for the chicken, because the chicken has not been pre-fried or cooked. This is not frozen or reheating any items. This is just cooking a raw chicken that has been kind of battered. So the model I chose was this one. Look at this great big box. Can you believe this? Oh my gosh, it's huge. It's the Cuisinart Air to New Way to Fry Air Fryer Toaster Oven. I chose this particular model because I like the flexibility of using it not only as an air fryer but as a toaster oven to reheat things, to cook small things. I like that idea. It does take up more counter space, as you can see. And the thing is pretty heavy, weighed about 25 pounds. A lot of the air fryer models that I've seen are much smaller. You can see they're like this big, but it has a very small chamber as well, so you can only cook a couple things at one time. I'm basing my cooking times off the little booklet, and they have a recipe for beer battered chicken wings. This is the air frying basket that came with the fryer and this little pan. So it says to place the basket on the pan, and I'm going to place 2 into the basket. That. Close that up. Set my knobs 400 degrees at air fry. 20 minutes. Ooh, there it goes. Ooh, can you hear it? Wow. So while that's cooking for 20 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and deep fry my remaining drumsticks. In my cast iron skillet here, I've got about 2.5 inches of vegetable oil that I've heated to 350 degrees. Here we go. Oh yes. That's a beautiful sound. A beautiful sound. Oh yes. It's really important when you deep fry to make sure your fat is really hot. And that's where a thermometer comes in real handy. About halfway through my cooking of my air fried chicken, I noticed that this started to happen. Yeah, the chicken started burning. So 10 minutes in, I reduced the temperature from 400 to 350, and I popped a new one in there. So this one is not quite cooked. I'm gonna take these ones off because they're done. That was, oh, left some of the crust behind, 350 degrees, but it still did the same thing. Now let's compare that with my deep fried version. And look how dark and mahogany this crust is. Look at that. And listen to that crust. This one's pretty crispy too. The air fryer, not a drop of oil, just the fat that's in the skin of the chicken. So here's my 2-piece Kentucky Fried Chicken meal. There we go. So as you can see right off the bat, the homemade version is much darker in color than the original. The recipe called for 350 degrees, which is a pretty typical deep frying temperature. I should also mention, if you're going to be frying chicken, it's important to make sure your chicken is cooked all the way through. I recommend getting yourself an instant read thermometer. Make sure that it's at 165 degrees. Let's give this a taste. I haven't had KFC in so long. Look how tiny the drumstick is. I remember them being a lot bigger. Alrighty, I was a lot smaller too. All right, here we go. Itadakimasu. That's some good chicken. Gosh, I haven't had that in so long. Now I understand that I grew up eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, so I'm probably partial to these particular flavors, but this is just as I remember. The skin is not as crunchy because I usually get the extra crispy, but still flavorful. It's got a little bit more spice than I remember, because I think now that I made this recipe, I'm like, oh yeah, there is a lot of white pepper in there, but it's delicious. Now let's taste the homemade version. So I'm impressed with the air fryer in the sense that it did make this pretty crispy. If you can hear that, very crispy, but it burnt it and it cooked it unevenly. See all these kind of floury patches? And it's just not very attractive. It did fully cook it in the 20 minutes, which I was impressed with as well. Let's see how it tastes. Here we go. I do have to say, the homemade version is a little bit more delicious than the store-bought version because this was just freshly fried. The meat is so succulent and juicy and hot, and like all fried foods, they're best when they are fried fresh. There's no stale oil flavors, no potato-y chip flavors, just freshly cooked fried chicken. It's really good. What about flavor? I have to say it does taste very similar to the original version, except this is a little spicier. There's a little bit more peppery kick to it. This part doesn't taste as creosote-y as I thought. This is black, so I thought it was going to taste like tar, but it doesn't. It's pretty tasty. And for not adding any additional oil, I am impressed with the amount of crispness on here. Just not the burntness. But I suspect that this is just not the recipe for an air fryer. Perhaps if I did more of a wet batter rather than doing this kind of dry dredge, I would get less of this kind of uneven cooking. Alrighty, let's try the deep fried Daddy Mac version. All right, here we go. That's pretty good. Did you hear that crispness? That's some pretty tasty fried chicken right there. Look how juicy and succulent that is. The crust is crisp. It has a great caramelized flavor, nicely deep fried. And that seasoning is great. I was concerned it would be a little bit overly salty because we added celery salt, garlic salt, and regular salt, but it's not. Because we didn't season the buttermilk, because we didn't season the chicken, it actually works really well. There's just kind of a light coating of that powder, actually, but really, really good. Recipe, I really do recommend the addition of MSG to this recipe. It really makes it taste processed. It makes it taste like KFC. Don't be afraid of MSG. It's already in everything already. You just don't know it. Just look in the back of a package of Hidden Valley Ranch mix and you'll see what I'm talking about. So there is the homemade KFC recipe. I would say it's pretty stinking close. And in terms of the air fryer, I'm not going to give up on it. I think it just requires a different recipe. I like the ease of it. I like the convenience. I like the capacity of the air fryer. I just need to cook some other recipes. So help me out. Let me know in the comments if there are recipes that I must try in the air fryer. This is my first attempt at cooking anything, so I'm ready to try some other things as well. And I hope you guys enjoy that one. I hope you guys learned something. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! I think I had chicken in my mouth the whole time I was doing that. Like right there. Attractive.